Hey everybody, this is Perch, and we've got the Marvel Voices Pride, and so I'm here with Joe, and Joe checked the issue out, and I read the issue too, and there's a lot of fanfare around this comic and DC's. What'd you think?
I'm still processing this.
Okay, okay.
I don't get it.
This issue. I think it's inevitable that this comic is going to be featured. A lot of people make videos, kind of dunking on various aspects of this comic, but I think the parts that confuse is the right word. Me are not. It's not what people are going to make videos over, and I can't help because it did feel like a bit of a contest. They put out DC Pride and Marvel Voices Pride. Obviously, it is Pride Month, but the way the press releases came out and the announcements, it really felt like there was this kind of pseudo competition going on between the two companies to get a Pride issue out, two anthologies. You've read both. Do you have a sense of which one you thought pulled it off better?
Honestly, I think DC might have pulled it off better.
That was my take too. The stories felt a little bit more substantial there.
Yeah.
And I think this gets to the heart of what frustrated me, and I suspect this may be the core of maybe your confusion as well, is DC's seem to better either get or respect the legacy of LGBTQ characters within their company.
Yeah. Yeah, they also didn't reprint an excerpt from a comic that was not well received.
Tell me about that. Which one are you referring to?
So Alpha Flight 106 is, that's been panned for years on being an awful example of a coming out comic. This was months after the Pied Piper came out in Flash 53, which was handled infinitely better than North Star. I read that recently. I'm not, pulling that out from, like, oh, when I was reading it, decades ago. Like, no, I read it recently. I read Alpha Flight 106 recently. Flash 53, infinitely better.
Well, we interviewed Bill Loebs a bit ago.
Yeah.
And so I was back reading that run. I did a kind of video reminder of that Alpha Flight issue. What's funny for me is I remember at the time the Pied Piper story being handled, what felt like it was handled a more mature way, and the North Star issue being painful at the time, just of how they handled it. When I went back and I read both those issues like you in the last 30 days. And what was interesting is the Pied Piper coming out story seemed to have aged better. If any.
Yeah.
And the North Star story had aged so much worse if you read that comic.
Yeah, and now people get the chance to read part of it in this.
They left out, like, the part that people always forget about that North Star comic is that the premise behind it was that there was North Star is fighting this character who was angry about the attention that an AIDS baby was getting.
Yes.
And that was kind of the premise of their fight. Now, they didn't reprint that bit. Probably for best. But it wasn't just North Star that was weird to me. We were talking a little earlier. This comic, it goes through the history of representation within Marvel Comics, but it seems to revise quite a bit.
There's way too much revisionist history. It opens up with this idea that Alpha Flight 106 was a well-received inspirational comic, which it wasn't. And it's very confusing when you read it. It makes you wonder who this book is for. And again, they have someone, was it Luciano Vecchio, I think, redraws North Star here, screaming, "I am gay." And then everyone remembers this moment, a cornerstone. North Star was the first superhero to come out to the public. It was an activist statement bringing awareness, starting discussions, and inspiring others. Who the hell got that out of Alpha Flight 106?
That was not how it was received. And I had a store that was open at that point. We sold that comic. People bought it. I remember thinking it'd be a collector's item because they had leaked to the press that he was going to come out in this comic, so the people were buying it for collector purposes. But I had a store employee, kind of store manager, who was gay, who thought it was the most offensive thing he'd read. Like it was just hated the handling of it. It was not a rallying cry. And I remember that was in kind of the comic journals at the time. People were not liking that issue who were gay. They thought it was incredibly blatantly commercialistic and just terribly handled. And they would point to things that were going on with Vertigo at the time and with DC. I guess Vertigo, this is a little predating Vertigo, but like, there were plenty of examples of great representation in comics. That was not one of them.
Yeah, and what might be even more confusing is when they state Rawhide Kid made waves as a gay cowboy in the Old West, a pioneer of a whole different sort. No. That this, I remember at the time, was horribly panned as awful and homophobic. This was it was a very immature comic.
Yes, and I before we record, you can go to those websites now. There were articles written less than 2 years ago talking about the most embarrassing homophobic, terrible moments in Marvel's past, and they go into detail about Rawhide Kid being basically a parade of gay jokes and terrible for all these. So that is one of the most bizarre parts of this book, because Rawhide Kid, like, nobody will believe that was a great moment for anything. It was the company was accused of being bigots for that book.
Yeah, and they referred to it as a groundbreaking miniseries.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking sales, which were terrible on that book, but just the critical reception of that was that it was patently offensive. So that's thoroughly bizarre.
Yeah, and then according to their history here, the way you're reading it, you have Jesse Drake, the first confirmed appearance of a trans character in Marvel Comics, and that's like early 90s. Annie Nocenti and Steve Lytle, who passed away earlier this year. Mm-hmm. But Jesse Drake appeared in 2 comics. Ever.
Wait, 2 series, you mean?
In comics.
Oh, comics. Two comics, 2 issues.
Yeah, but she made the cut here, and instead of using this anthology as a way to bring back into the folds their only trans character they had for a while, they just keep her gone, but remind you she exists. There's just no room for her in this anthology.
And this anthology does have a story introducing another trans hero / cosplayer, right?
Just cosplayer.
Just cosplayer.
Not a hero. It's a very awkward story. Yeah. And again, I know a lot of people who are involved in this book. I am thrilled that people are getting paid and doing this work.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I got to stress, I do not begrudge people for taking a paycheck. I do not begrudge different ideas. Again, like these ideas weren't forced on anyone. No one forced Marvel to publish this. They published this. They had all the rights in the world to be like, we don't want to do this story. Can you do that story? These are the stories that Marvel wanted.
Yes.
So again, no begrudging any freelancers involved in this at all. But it's just a very confusing story here. There was this controversy first on what was this, a few weeks ago?
Yeah,
about
a
trans She-Hulk and all that. And the way this ends up playing out in the comic is like the worst for everyone.
Okay.
Because she's not She-Hulk. She's a cosplayer.
Oh, she's a normal person cosplaying as She-Hulk.
Yeah. So you're going to get people who are annoyed about the all the craziness that went on a few weeks ago and all the drama. And then you're also going to upset all the people who wanted a trans She-Hulk or a trans superhero of some kind introduced here, and you also don't get that.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people, I remember when that controversy hit, saying, confirmed it's canon, She-Hulk is trans now. And then it seemed to slip a little bit, like the writer seemed to indicate it's not what you think. And people took that to mean, well, it's not the 616 She-Hulk. It's a different She-Hulk. It's a She-Hulk from the multiverse who is trans. But you don't get that either. You get a cosplayer who is cosplaying as She-Hulk, who fights Titania as a cosplayer?
Yeah, like, she's confused and thinks that this cosplayer is She-Hulk, and like, you know what, sure, suspending your disbelief and believing they look very similar, fine. The thing that kills me is there's a bit where she like throws her lunch at Titania, and she doesn't figure out that this thing that was thrown at her was not thrown by someone with She-Hulk strength.
Yeah.
And proceeds to continue following this person, and then the whole bit. I get the visual bit you want from that is Tatiana like grabs her neck and the green paint comes off. Like, I get that. But then don't have She-Hulk, this cosplayer playing She-Hulk throw something at Tatiana and hit her in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you said, bad for everybody. So basically, the people who were upset by this are going to continue to be upset by this because now we've got a story where Titania is a moron and is attacking a cosplay convention for no apparent reason. The trans cosplayer really doesn't matter in the sense of to that outrage. But on the other end, you have people who are hoping that this would be a new trans character, superhero character, or maybe existing trans superhero character, not getting what they want either, because we're not going to get the adventures of this cosplayer as a comic.
Yeah.
Like we won't see this cosplayer ever again.
Oh, God, no. That will never happen.
But meanwhile, the character that the comic identified as being trans from its own legacy, who had 2 total comics, is nowhere to be seen other than as part of the history readout.
Yes, and also to further annoy people, after this confrontation with Tatiana and the cosplayer She-Hulk, they like go get coffee together and like chill and hang out for no reason.
So the message there is that you should make friends and hang out with your abuser.
I guess it very, very weird. I don't understand why someone who likes She-Hulk that much wants to hang out with one of her staple villains.
Yeah, I a lot of questions there. What continues to strike me about this issue, again, and it's almost like the comic is self-aware enough to know that there's a lot of characters and moments and things in its past, but isn't self-aware enough to actually leverage those in stories. Like, wouldn't this anthology, you want to commit to Pride Month and commit to kind of better representation? Wouldn't this comic have been a good opportunity to maybe launch a mini-series or full series with some of these characters as a kickoff point to do more than just this one anthology that is largely forgettable? Yeah,
it's weird. And again, with the story Totally Invulnerable, which is the She-Hulk story. Like, I'm Crystal Frazier is an openly trans woman. It's great that she's working at Marvel. It's great that they're hiring people for this stuff. I hope they're investing in this talent, and not like the problem is when you get to these anthologies, it too often feels like, oh, we're gonna plug in some queer creators, and then we'll call you again when the next anthology comes out.
Yeah, see you next June.
Yeah, and you hope that doesn't happen. It wouldn't be entirely fair to say that's exactly what's happening right now, because these are the first anthologies that either are doing, but you've seen these sort of things play out, and that tends to be kind of what happens outside of some of the bigger names they bring in here, like Marika Tamaki, Tamara Bonvillain.
They have existing work.
Yeah, but you also get a couple of other things here. Lila Sturgis also tweeted how they had referred to her in their promo video as a fantasy novelist, even though she's been doing comics for 15 years.
Jesus Christ. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's just like, well, and again, that to me signals an idea that comics aren't important. And saying you have a credit from anywhere but comics is better for them. Like that somehow means more. And I mean, this is a conversation for another video, but
it feels all wrapped together, though. It really feels, because it is this comic is about representation, but not for the creators, really.
No. But yeah, and a bunch of people, I'm friends with a bunch of people involved in this, and again, glad they're getting money, getting their due, getting involved in something like this, and a lot of people want to be telling, like stories with these characters, working with these characters. But then you get anywhere from like 3 to 8 pages, and then it's like, oh, maybe we'll do something again later, and you wish they would commit more to doing miniseries or series, and less to these just the constant pumping out of different kinds of anthologies that both companies have been doing lately. And one of the other standouts here is was it Man of His Dreams, the Steve Orlando and Claudia Guerre with Luciano Vecchio. And Claudia's a dear friend. I've also known Steve for a long time, but I talk to Claudia very frequently, and she's great, and that's a great opportunity for her. That might be her first published Marvel work, but don't quote me on that, but it's up there. So okay. For that, that's fantastic. But again, like you read this story, and they're using this as kind of a way to introduce a new character, Somnus, and he's not being used till next year. Like that's weird.
I don't get why. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be saying about the production and everything. Like, was this whole character planned out and created and put into action in the last 30 days? And so they're 6 months off before we'll see this character. Like, what does this say about planning and just generally how we're looking at these characters? It makes, I didn't get that either. This like, see you again next year. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, I why not use them sooner? But also, why make a new character now when they could have had someone do a story with Jesse Drake and reintroduce Jesse Drake?
Or many of the characters that were identified in this very same book from their past, including even in the variant cover where they put a number of characters around the ring of the cover that they're aware they exist because they got them onto the cover, but apparently not interested in doing more with that IP. I don't understand the strategy here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like the thing with someone like Somnus, I wonder. And again, this is this is cynical, but
yeah,
was this a way to kind of do this is a first appearance, so you're going to want to pick up this issue because it's a key?
Yeah.
Like, what was that the reason you introduce a character like that in this anthology, a hope to bump sales through, making this a key issue.
I'm sure that plays into it. And I mean, and if the goal is like, hey, we get the sales up and this helps people get a better paycheck down the road, it's all fine. But the other part to me is saying, you mentioned some of these names who are doing these books. They would just like to be writing comics. Like Crystal Fraser dream can't be to write short stories of cosplaying She-Hulk against Titania. Like that can't, like Crystal Fraser has other ideas.
Yeah, and she is co-writing the was it Gamma Flight with Al Ewing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that there's more after this, that they're investing in her as a writer, and that we see more of her. And that's the same with a lot of these people on this list, like Terry Blas. I hope we see more. I'd love to see more from Lila. Lila has a lot of experience in superhero comics for over a decade, as she stated. There's no reason you wouldn't want to put her on a book. She wrote the I think it was the Thor season 1 when they were doing those graphic novels at Marvel, but she's mostly done DC work. She did a bunch of Fable spinoffs.
I want to hit it's not the elephant in the room, but it's something that people claim a lot, and I'm curious to get your take on it. Is there a belief, or to your knowledge, do you think, is it possible that there's a belief that the publishers want to pigeonhole these creators only in LGBTQ content, that they view somebody like a Crystal Fraser and like, well, we couldn't put you on Captain America. We couldn't put you on, Iron Man. You've got to be on the title that has a trans character on it because that's you. So you have to be that. Is that? Do you think that mentality is in play here? Because it that sounds stupid, and yet you see these books come out, and it feels like the only time several of these names get a call is when they're doing something where they're like, well, we need to match this up.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I've heard from different people that they've been in those situations. I can't speak for Crystal specifically, but
Sure.
I would imagine someone like Crystal, not knowing her, wants to do characters like that, but also wants to do other things as well. Like, yes, I think she wants to tackle trans characters and build up that rep at Marvel while also being allowed to do other work.
I think, and again, I from a couple of people I've talked to, they certainly would like to write about or draw topics that they're interested in or things that speak to them as individuals, but they're also comic fans. They got into this because they like comics, and they don't just like gay comics; they like comics. Period. So they, it's like if you gave Lila Iron Man, Lila's not going to turn around and be like, well, the only way I'm writing this is if we make these 18 changes to the book. I mean, I think Lila would just be happy to write Iron Man because Lila likes comics.
Yes.
So this sounds absurd to say it out loud.
No, for sure. And, other things that kill me about this is, okay, you get Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung together again.
Right.
So you're excited when you open up I can't wait to get to that story. I love, the Young Avengers. I've liked them for a long time, particularly things like Children's Crusade. I thought were a lot of fun.
Yep, for sure.
And then you get to it and it's a splash page.
Yeah, a single splash page.
Yeah.
And yet these creators, arguably for Marvel, I think Wiccan and Hulkling and that kind of relationship and those characters are probably two of their biggest successes in introducing gay characters into the Marvel Universe over the last 10 years, 20 years. I'm trying to think of bigger success that they've had. I think that was in terms of new characters, they've lasted. Those characters people will actually show up to the store and buy.
Yeah.
So you do a splash page, and I do get the feeling like it wasn't because the Alan and Jim are like, wow, we only have enough time to do one page. I'm pretty sure if you gave them more money, they would do more.
Yeah, no, right? for sure.
So I mean, I've argued with people in the comments over this, and I guess I don't know if I make my point badly or not, but I can't figure out one, what audience they're exactly going for here, and two, if they're willing to put money, time, effort, promotion to this, why they wouldn't just try a couple ongoing or whatever serves as ongoing for Marvel miniseries with a couple of their existing characters, put some of these creators on them, try that. But in terms of, providing more representation of the creators that are working on this stuff, like why not, Ta-Nehisi Coates is coming off Black Panther. Maybe Lila should do Black Panther.
Sure. I mean, there's no. I mean, there's tons of ways you can go with this. There's tons of other. It's tough because you can always go through and be like, oh, you could have got this person, you could have got that person, you could have,
sure.
You could have highlighted this character and that character. I think where the book really gets confusing is the rewriting the history.
Yeah.
And sort of some of these choices, again, like with the vow, just having that splash page for two of the characters that I think people would have really loved to have been like the biggest story in the book.
For sure.
I'm sure people would have killed to have, Al Heinberg and, Jim Chung do something that's like, an extended honeymoon or something like that with them, and, have a nice story like that to, celebrate the wedding, things like that. But yeah, you read this through and yeah, it's a lot of like, why are we, instead of spending time with someone like Sumnus doing like an origin story, why don't we have a nice story that we don't have to have most of it be exposition, because this is an anthology and you don't have a lot of space.
I mean, again, it feels like if you want to celebrate Pride Month and you're Marvel, getting the original creators of the Young Avengers, getting Alan and Jim to do a one-shot 22-page story of, as you said, the honeymoon.
Yeah.
And have it be, and you market it as the original creators of the Young Avengers come back to do this story. It feels like that would have been both more sales, more collectability. I mean, Sumnus is not going to be a breakout character in 2022. I mean, I'll eat my words if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's not going to be, Sumnus is not going to be the next Deadpool. So I would bank on, Wiccan and Hulkling personally. I mean, go crazy, call me crazy. I just, I've talked to several of the creators at different times and at cons and everything, and nobody ever says, I want to see more representation in comics, and the way I want to do it is through a 3-page story and anthology. It seems like a strange goal, and I like you. I think the part that was maybe the most confusing and frustrating for me is it was the Rawhide Kid bit that got me.
Yes, no, that broke me. But yeah, and then it's stuff like, you interview Chris Cooper, which again, great. I'm pretty sure Marvel, either I think they fired him a couple of decades ago, or they stopped giving him work. And then a couple of decades later, and that feels like he was in the news, and they remembered and asked him.
It's hard not to be extremely cynical about that, because you do get the feeling that, I mean, Cooper has been in comics and around comics for quite some time. I don't know the full entire story, but I don't believe I don't believe he cheerfully left Marvel originally.
I don't believe that either, but again, I could be wrong. I don't want to make that assumption, but I'm pretty sure that that was not the case. And yes. On top of that, you also have all the there were a bunch of queer characters in as supporting cast in Ivan Velez's Ghost Rider run, which gets no mention in here. That he was I want to say, he was easily one of the first openly gay men to get a run on a book at Marvel, if not the first to have like a run. Because I know I guess Chris Cooper did a run on something, but I don't think he did as many as Ivan. I think Ivan did a full 2-year run.
Yeah, and I mean, well received at the time, sold well.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider was, today you might look at that, Ghost Rider is one of kind of the bit characters, but in the 90s, Ghost Rider was easily one of Marvel's bigger selling books.
Yeah, and if you can take the time to credit Jesse Drake, who showed up in 2 comics, you could mention that, Ivan Velez had a 2-year run on Ghost Rider as an openly gay Hispanic man. And I believe he was also only the second Hispanic person to write Marvel Comics. Yeah. I think the first was George Perez. Yeah. And then I think it was Ivan. So I don't know why you don't celebrate someone like Ivan Velez, who is also very much still around, still likes making comics, and is easy to get a hold of.
I don't get the choices being made. I don't get what people are trying. I don't understand what people exactly are trying to accomplish here. You do a story like this. You do a comic like this. Again, great for the people involved. Glad they got a check. Hope it leads to more. Legitimately, 100%. I hope it leads, and I hope it leads to more that is not Marvel Voices 2022 pride. I want it to lead to more for all of you than next year's anthology. Let it actually be the start. And please, I hope the publisher starts maybe considering these creators for comics that do not feature LGBTQ character, or just any character, whatever it happens to be. Just, are they a good writer? Do they have a good pitch? Maybe you should consider them, period.
Absolutely. And there's, in addition to the writers, which, I'm a fan of most of the writers here. And if I'm not a fan, it's because I don't know them personally, but I enjoy a lot of the writers on a personal level here. Same thing with the artists. I mean, other than Claudia, I've worked with Brittany Williams. She's amazing. I really love her stuff. She's a bit on the cartoony side. I know some people are less interested in that, but I think she's a fantastic artist. You have Jen Hickman. I've worked with Jen Hickman. They are incredible. I love them. I hope they get more Big Two kind of work if they want it, because they're great.
Wouldn't it be more of a statement for Pride and for kind of how you're going to build this community up, to put some of these creators on books without needing this connection to Pride? Wouldn't it make more of a statement to put Jen Hickman on, again, Iron Man?
Yeah. It'd be nice to see those opportunities for any sort of book,
But wouldn't the market also? I believe that the press releases and the news and the stuff you'd get off of it would actually be stronger, better for that. I mean, it feels like, even from a cold, calculating, cynical view as a publisher, you would get more credit and more attention with efforts like that. But meaning putting people on your main books, you get Black Panther, Captain America, both coming to an end. You're going to reboot. Putting them on books like that would, I think, be more newsworthy and also make people feel, but I mean, just all better than saying, look, we've got this anthology where there's 3 pages. I mean,
you want to see people, lifted up and succeed, but I get it, because it feels like the past few years or so, a lot of it has been like just spinning wheels,
yeah,
and you want to see things move forward, and it feels like there's no difference between when Love is Love came out as a benefit anthology and these anthologies. They feel like they're on that same kind of level in terms of like it feels like it's kind of an introduction,
yeah,
instead of jumping in head first into kind of the stuff, and just I think myself and a lot of other queer creators want stuff that's like, okay, now what? What's
yes,
the
okay,
next
now
step?
what? Yeah, no, that's full set. I just it feels performative, and again, that's not knocking the fact that people got some work and a check and everything else, but it feels like somebody. The way it feels from the outside is that somebody inside the office, some editor, some publisher, said, "Ah, crap, Bride Mutt's coming up in 3 months. What are we doing for that? Oh, nothing. Quick, throw a comic out." That's how it comes across. Whereas on multiple fronts, and I would get for a company without history why this may be the road you'd want to go on, but what if they were really kind of taking this seriously? It's like, hey, we're going to put Ivan Velez's work out in a trade for Pride Month. It's been out of print. We're going to put that out, and that's week 1. And then week 2, look, we've got this this creator that we're going to put on one of our main books because we support creators, who are not straight on books, but we're going to put them on a classic Marvel title.
Yeah.
And, and then we're going to take one of these characters and we're going to actually try and do something with them. We're going to do a Hulkling Wiccan series for a while. We're going to try that, and that would be substance, as opposed to this, which feels it feels like this, they get it out and then they quickly move on to whatever's going on in September and October and quickly put it behind them.
We're relaunching Millie the Model with Leah Williams.
There you go. Yeah.
That's I'm kind of serious there. Why not? Like, I think that would be a good fit.
Probably would be a good fit, actually. That'd be a good fit.
I think do that, but teeny on one of the more mystical books, like if you're ending Doctor Strange and if you're all in on Teeny and she's doing this work, why not try that out, or a one shot, or something around characters like Doctor Strange?
Well, just a lot of options, and I think it would be it's weird to me to see them largely forget their history, and the pieces that they decide to bring to the table are often super weird, like the Rawhide Kid comic being a great step forward for representation. I'm not joking, by the way. Go to Google, put in Rawhide Kid and bad, and just look at the articles where people are trashing that book for being homophobic.
Yes, it's really bad. But yeah, I mean, they do at least seem committed to giving more work to Steve Orlando. They seem to have wanted him, and he's going to be doing that. So that's something. I'd love to see more Kieran Gillen stuff, because I think he's Young Avengers and Journey into Mystery I really liked in terms of his Marvel work. I think he's got potential to do some other good things. He could be good on something like Doctor Strange too. Like, I think.
Yeah. No, there's I think there's lots of ways to do it. I just I don't appreciate once a year this stuff that they trot this out along with a bunch of variant covers and be like, look, we've got everything covered. See you next year. And like we're supposed to think that is any kind of accomplishment. But
no, for sure. I want to see I want to get to that now what portion.
last piece I just will throw out to you, because there's again, there'll be plenty of comments and videos and other things dunking on this book, because it almost sets itself up for that, I think, in several ways. But
Sure.
like, don't you think it would also be a little harder for people to pick at these efforts if there was a more, like, if there was a more you put Layla on Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure, that'd be great.
And you commit to an ongoing book, and you can't. I mean, people certainly can come at the creator and Marvel's decisions to do all that, but it's harder to do that when you have a tangible ongoing book. It also feels in some ways like the publisher is intentionally kind of opening themselves up for criticism with this stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe it comes either way.
I don't quite get it. Again, like we'll see what happens, but there's also like a lot of characters in this book who are mostly not portrayed as being queer. Like most people wouldn't lump like Black Cat into the queer characters, because she's very often like it's vaguely hinted at kind of stuff. I think if you ask most people or brought it up, most people wouldn't even think or know she's portrayed as bi. Does not come off a lot. There's a few other characters in here too where you're like, okay, sure. Like if you really want to do a story about that character, but I don't know why.
Hopefully better efforts come out of this somewhere for everybody, and would love to see some of these people who I think are comic fans and love comics independent of their identity. Comics is the career that they want, and so hopefully they'll get a chance to do more in comics, which would be probably the best outcome here if it happens.
Yeah, no, that would I'd love to see that. I'd love to see more miniseries or one shots or runs of these characters, some more breathing room and stories that are beyond this. I think we know there's some representation. Not saying it's enough. I'm not making any of those claims, but people are aware, and we need to move past that point of representation, and get to that point where like, look at these stories and just you get the representation, and move it away from using this kind of stuff for like sound bites and PR and as a shield to come off like you're a good corporation.
Yes.
It's interesting that you'll see people be like, they'll share these memes of like, oh, it's Pride Month, corporations are out pretending they really care about you, but they don't. Look at these banks, being pro-Pride, but they don't care. Same thing with Walmart, Target, etc. But when the corporations Marvel or Disney, suddenly it's just like, oh, that's all bad, but gimme these Pride anthologies. It's just very like there's disconnect here.
Yeah, there's a pretty big double standard being applied there, and I would like for Marvel to get to a place where they can put out an anthology an omnibus, and not buy a queer creator and not point to like, no, we got one, Grant Morrison over there. We got Grant Morrison, so we're covered. It'd be nice if some other creators would get a chance there, and I think the solution to that would be put them on books.
Yeah, no, that would be great. At least it seems like Grant is too good for these kind of things.
Well, there's the silver lining.
Yeah,
well,
Grant's
Joe, thanks,
just like no.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we're reviewing something else more substantive. So.
Yeah, we'll do that.